what I mean by that is, what I mean by how are we coming into the session, we have all come from whatever we are doing, maybe office, maybe work, maybe something else, maybe a phone call, whatever we were doing, we have come in here. And therefore, how are we coming in? What's the emotional state that we are coming in into the session? Just one word. And I can start just to, to share how I'm coming in. So I'm coming in with a lot of eagerness and enthusiasm. I'm really looking forward to, okay, curious, okay, what else? You could either use the chat as Lavi has used, or unmute yourself and say. Excitement, all right. Any other emotions? We aren't many people, so hopefully each of you can share. Welcome, Shraddha. Pia, would you like to share either on the chat or Aarti as well? Seema, you can unmute and share that too. Openness, excellent. Okay, so I'm curious. Now, there is a curiosity with me as well. How many of us like change? You can either put a Y or an N on the chat, or just raise your hand, or use the action button to sort of raise the Zoom hand. How many of us like change? Okay, no, yes, excellent. So let's try something very simple. There is no hidden agenda here. It's something very straightforward and simple. Let's just fold our hands. So I mean, fold our hands as in this way. I hope all of you are doing it behind your computer. Now, some of us have got a left over right, and some of us have got the other way around, which is right over left. Now uncross it and cross it the other way around. So if you had your left over right, now your right should be over left, and vice versa. I can see, with people whom I can see, there is a bit of discomfort over the face. How does that feel? To be crossing the unhabitual way.
Different.
Conscious, like you need to concentrate to keep it like that.
Spot on, Lavi, right? Because we are so used to, we don't even think, we just, when we want to cross our hands, we just do it automatically. There is no thinking, nothing. It just comes out of autopilot mode. When we do it the unhabitual way, it's uncomfortable, it's weird, it's different. We have to concentrate. We have to use our brain. Okay, how do I do this? And this is with almost every aspect in life. So I'll give you another example. I've injured my knee just now, and it's a pretty bad injury that I've torn my ACL. So I'm someone who used to walking fast. I do a lot of exercise, and now I have to unlearn and learn new habits in terms of how do I walk slowly? How do I deal with that anxiety of walking slowly, and which is not used to? And all of this happens because we are creatures of habit. Now, Chitra mentioned a great point that, yes, change is the only constant in life. And there are only two certainties in life. Well, three. Death, we don't know when, but death is certain. Taxes and change. Those are the three constants in life, and there is no escape from those three. Now, in the world of work, life, change is absolutely inevitable. We have no escape from it. And where the challenge comes is we have our beliefs, we have our values, we have our identities. We are creatures of habit, used to doing things in a particular way. And therefore, letting go of the old and making way for the new presents a lot of challenges. Now, why am Chitra did share quite a bit about me. I have been through several significant work and life transitions. And what I'm going to share with you today is really based on my own experiences in life, at work, and also experience gained as a leader in managing teams, and also in coaching leaders from various industries across the globe. Now, today's session is about dipping your toe into some of these experiences, which I'll share. And I would like this to be really interactive. We are very few of us. And even if you're in a member of Chitra's team, you have a contribution to make. Don't shy away from making a contribution or sharing your experiences when I ask you some questions or when I ask you to think about something. Because I definitely don't want to be speaking with myself the entire time. I'm going to get bored pretty soon. So to keep me engaged and to keep yourself engaged, I request you to interact. Now, I would also request each of you to reflect as I'm sharing tips and as I'm asking questions, and if you have any insights, really reflect on the points as we progress to see what you can try so that you're able to take the first step and get more comfortable. Now, each of us are different, and therefore some things may work for some of us and some others may not. But see what you can explore. So let me share in briefly what the rest of the time is going to look at, and I'm just going to share my my slides. So just if you can bear with me for 1 second. So what do we mean by transition and change? We'll spend some time in it. Common challenges, and then from all my experiences, I've sort of picked up 6 key tips and tricks to manage transitions. And finally, about 10 or 15 minutes we'll spend on asking questions. Of course, if you have any really urgent question that you want to clarify immediately, please put it on the chat or raise your hand, unmute yourself and ask. Now, let me ask this, and please share it on the chat or by unmuting yourself. When you hear the word transitions, what is it that comes to mind?
Moving from one state to another.
Okay. Progress. All right. What else? Butterflies. Okay. Yeah, indeed.
Moving from a comfortable state to an uncomfortable state.
Aha. Say more about that, Seema.
Yeah, Lalita?
You said from a... Sorry, was it you or was it... Who was it who said comfortable to uncomfortable state? Sorry.
Yeah, it's me only.
Okay.
Seema.
So I'm saying say more about that.
It's me, Seema.
Yeah. So when you say comfortable to uncomfortable state,
yeah, actually,
examples or share more.
Be happy. Yeah. We'll be comfortable doing some things in the same way. So we'll be always comfortable in that. But when we ask for transition, it might be thinking about a different way where we have to think about innovations and all that. Then it takes a lot of time in the process and all that. So we may not be happy doing that change.
Indeed, and it is as
very
as
easy one is moving from one flat to another rental house.
Yes, and yes, there is a lot of discomfort associated with that process. And when we are in discomfort or when we have to get out of our comfort zone, what happens is there is psychological impact from that state. Now, there is a difference between transitions and change. Change happens every moment, every day. Transitions is an inner psychological process that we all go through as we internalize, just as Seema, you mentioned, moving from one flat to another flat. Part of what makes that difficult is also we have bought some things, we have put the furniture, we have, put things in a particular place so that it fits beautifully like a glove. And we have managed to do that when we moved into that flat. And we're used to that for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever. There is a psychological shift and sometimes a huge impact. And I know people who have changed flats, changed countries, changed even their seat in the office. And that's created a huge impact in terms of them not being able to do what they do well, because they have had to shift their mental thinking. And that's what we mean by transitions. And there is an excellent book by William Bridges. He has written 2 books. The first book is about dealing with the death of his wife, who passed away from cancer. And his second book is, again, about dealing with role transitions and really putting a lot of other perspectives to his first book. And the reason I'm bringing up his book is, for him, he has explained this very well. Transitions consist of 3 stages. And every transition begins with an ending. What do we mean by ending? We have to let go of the old thing, our old job, our old role, our being a single, an individual when we get married, or maybe being when we were married, just a couple and we didn't have any kids, and then becoming a mother. And there are changes, obviously, internally within our body. There are changes within our own expectations that we have to make. And all of that is the old thing. And a lot of our identity, a lot of who we think we are, is very much linked to that. And we have to let go of that in very many ways, internally shift our mental models before we can pick the new one. And in fact, the research that's been done on transitions will tell you that the ending is what takes the longest time in a transition. So when I transitioned from being an investment banker, where I spent 20 years of my life, to do what I do now, organization development, coaching, facilitation, etc., it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy, not because I didn't know what to do. That part was the easy part. It was, so the way I used to introduce myself in the beginning was, hi, I'm Lalita, I'm an ex-investment banker. And then I used to follow up with what I used to do what I do now and what I used to do at that time. After 10 years, I've obviously gotten a lot more comfortable because I've internalized it, and I have really closed my identity within investment banking. I have truly closed it. So it took me a good 3-4 years to really end it in every way. Then is a middle zone, neutral zone, where there is a confusion. How much of my old identity do I use? How much of comfort do I draw from there? What do I miss there? And all of that confusion. And again, this happens in no matter what transition you're going through, right? Maybe becoming a mother, maybe becoming, quitting your job and just taking a break for 6 months, maybe changing roles, maybe getting promoted, maybe, moving industries. It can happen in any aspect of life. Maybe moving from, you have a passion towards sales, and therefore you've realized that, and you've said, you know what, I'm just going to stop doing what I'm doing now, and I'm going to go into sales. Though you've gone out of a conscious choice, again, there's a lot of confusion. Oh, but my previous role, I used to do it like this. I wish I could do it in sales as well like that. And then comes the new beginnings, where you completely internalize, you really let go of the old, the confusion ends, and there is a complete shift. And going again with Seema's example of moving to flats, it takes a while. Again, it differs from person to person, but it takes a while to get used to the new flat, to get used to where have I put things. Oh, the shelf on the other flat used to be on the right, now it's on the left, and it takes time. And the starting point for dealing with transition is not the outcome, but it is essentially the endings that people have in leaving the old situation behind. So just to summarize, change is an external event that happens. And what people go through internally, and the internal psychological process that goes on, the inner narratives that goes on, is transition. So it very much has a psychological impact. Now, you may wonder, does every change lead to transition? Not necessarily. may or may not. Positive changes can also lead into transition. Giving you an example. So there was this lady that I coached, I finished coaching her last year, and it was a fantastic change. She always wanted to be the CEO of the Asia Pacific region. She got promoted to that. Now, was it easy? No. So the transitions that she went through, oh my God, will I be able to do this role? She's an Asian woman. How can I manage people who are older to me in age, as well as older to me in terms of years of experience? How do I deal with my previous peers who are now my direct reports? Do I have authority to do this? So there was a lot of confusion. You know, till now I have gotten my way through because I always had my way. I knew what to do, and I used to tell people what to do. Can I use the same communication, and can I communicate and lead people in the same way? Will I inspire them? And all of that arising from a good change had her questioning, and that's why she required a sounding board, which was me in that case, where she had to transition and really internalize and fully accept this role and make the necessary shifts for her to be successful and grow in that role. Now, how many of you, and I'm going to just stop sharing, how many of you have gone through or going through transitions in the way, in the way I've explained it? You can again put it on the chat or unmute and speak.
I am going through transition in the sense that at least I think I'm in a neutral phase, edging towards new beginning, because I come from a design background and I'm a complete, I think great like a designer. And when I started the business also, somewhere I knew that a business requires a lot more department than just the product and design. But then being a designer, somewhere, everything else got lost, and I thought the designs will take the business forward. Then came the hard realization where, that, you're not designing for a company, you are running a business. So then the reality hit me, and then I was like, okay, I need targets, I need goals, I need marketing strategies, I need an accounts team, I need, so all that started. Then, that transition happened where then I started looking at it holistically as a business owner and not as a designer. And then numbers was not my strong point. So somewhere, that kept lagging. Then came the next phase where I started concentrating more on numbers. And I said, if I want this to be a proper business, then I need goals. And, I can't randomly make products. I need to have targets, inventory targets, financial targets. So all that, then I started learning numbers. So then I started creating a system saying that, a business needs to run even without you. So even if I'm traveling, I can have a system in place where, if I'm not available, somebody can take a look at it and instantly understand what's happening. So then my next phase was to put a system in place. And right now I'm at that phase where I'm trying to automate things. So that's my journey.
Thank you for sharing a lovely life experience, Aarti. And I mean, looking at the chat, several of you are going through transitions. And one of the most difficult part is we like to stick to what our strength is. So in my case, it was, I was very good as an investment banker. I was very good I used to be, before I quit banking, I used to be in sales. And that's a part that I was very passionate about. But the challenge I had was in selling myself, because I run my own business. So it's about actually talking about myself, where I did not have that strength. And then when I was talking to somebody said, hey, you know what, think about yourself, about what are the products and services that you offer. So that's not about talking about yourself. It becomes as if you're talking about a product, as if you're talking about a service. And it's similar to what Aarti shared, you know, she's a designer, she is passionate about that. And what are the areas where I need to fill the gaps? Where can I amplify my strengths, and where can I fill in the gaps so that a holistic approach is taken? And that takes sometimes a lot, because that is to deal with your identity and whether you're comfortable with that, who you think you are and who you think you need to become. And therein lies a lot of challenges that come up. So let me, if we have time, I would like to listen to some more examples, but for now, I'll just continue on, and maybe during the question answer session, you all can maybe share more. So what are the different types of transitions? And typically when we go through transitions, we don't really categorize this, but this is just to give you an overview, an idea. So there are 4 types of transitions, most commonly anticipated. Anticipated is, you know, we expect this, we have planned it. And some of the examples are, you know, when we finish school, we go to college, and in college, we graduate, we find a job, maybe get married, maybe have children. Most of those we can anticipate and plan for it. Now, everything doesn't go as per plan many times for whatever reason. As we have seen during the pandemic, a lot of that has changed too. But most of these are anticipated. And the thing with anticipated transitions, they are more or less easy to manage. Yet, when you anticipate and something unanticipated happens, that's when there is a lot of confusion. And the confusion comes from a very important reason. The reason being the way we manage our brain. And I'll come to that in about 4 or 5 minutes, because it's very much how our brain deals with uncertainty, the unknown, and how do we manage our brain. It's not that we are bad at managing transitions, it's just how do I manage my brain to make it comfortable with the unknown and the uncertain, which is where a lot of the unanticipated transitions, like, for example, the pandemic was. And we've all been through intensities of different adaptations, flexing that we've all had to undergo. Non-event transitions are interesting because some of this was, some of the examples that I can obviously think about here is, maybe, you know, you were always expecting to be a parent, but sometimes maybe the person you got married to, or maybe because of some health challenges, you're unable to have children. And those become from a non-event to a big event, to a big change in your life, to your perspective to life, and how you deal with life thereafter. Again, maybe, you know, when you decided, I love children, my husband or my partner likes children, we're going to have children, and you have a child, and then you realize how much of that changes, and your work identity and your whole identity changes. And sometimes it takes, I know people, women, who it's taken a very long time just to make that transition. And it's nothing to be judgmental about that, because we all have our own way of dealing with it. The last one is sleeper transitions. Now, these occur gradually and individually, and many times we may not even be aware of the progression. So this is something where you realize over the years, things have changed. You're very skilled at something, you're very good at something, people have always relied on you. The market has changed. And suddenly you realize, these are areas where, you know, I'm not very comfortable. And I'll speak about myself in this case where, you know, so someone like me was not born with technology. I'm not that young. I wish I was that young, but I'm not that young. And therefore, when technology came to the forefront, I had to work really hard to get comfortable with it, speak to clients, and you know, really become so that technology becomes part of me. And therefore, I had to overcompensate many times by working longer hours, getting up in the wee hours of the morning before I went to the office to make sure I was comfortable with everything. Again, today I'm comfortable with Zoom, using a lot of other software in combination with Zoom. But when I first started using Zoom 5 to 6 years back, when Zoom was not very much in use by most people, but as a coach, you had to. I had to make sure before a workshop, okay, what do I do? Well, how do I do it? So I used to either call my sister or my husband or a few friends. Hey, I want to test this out. And that's how I've gotten comfortable. So those are kind of the sleeper transitions. I would like to now ask you all, what are some of the common challenges to transition? And here is something I want to do it in a particular way. If I may share, hang on. So please take your iPhone or iPad or whatever you have, not iPhone, your smartphone, my apologies, not iPhone, but your smartphone, and go to menti.com. As you can see here, you don't need to type in mentimeter.com, just type in menti.com, menti.com. And once you type that, please put in this code 43661078. It's on the screen too, that I've just shared. And once you input that code 43661078, you will see a question, which is, sorry, which is on the screen now. What are some of the challenges, external and internal, with regard to transitions? You will put in one word, and you're allowed to do it 3 times. So maybe one is fear. Second word maybe, so put fear, hit enter. Second, and then enter the second word and enter the third word and hit return. And as you're doing that, you will see the word cloud come up here of the different things that you've shared.
Did you put the code in the chat?
No, I have not.
Want me to put it?
Yeah, please, if you don't mind.
Can you just repeat it? So I will. Can you just repeat? So I will put it.
Hang on, I'll put it. 43661078.
Okay, that helps.
And your entries will be anonymous. Don't worry, I won't know who is putting what. But just to get an idea and just to make it a little more interactive, instead of asking you to put on chat, I thought this is another way to share. Yeah, so there's restlessness, fear, difficult, intense. We'll give it a few more seconds before I stop sharing. So I'm assuming everyone has shared. Yeah, and some of this is, actually all of it: uncertainty, discomfort, overwhelm, stress, anxiety is another one, the intensity of the transition. All of that are common challenges.
Yeah.
And these challenges can be, if I can sort of, hold on a second, let me just share my PowerPoint again.
There's some banging noise coming in the background. I don't know where it is. Somebody's microphone, or there is some work
Yeah,
going
I'm also hearing that.
So anybody is in a place which is noisy, all of you please go on mute. I can see everybody on mute.
Priya, I think she is not on mute. Priya.
Let me check. Okay, you please continue. I'll check.
Okay. So the first one, and is cognitive challenge. Something as human beings, especially we women, face. The ability, and what does that mean? The ability to let go of what worked for us before in order to be successful in the new role. The new role can be a work role. The new role can be changing roles, as from a unmarried girl to being a mother, right? And that a lot of times stops us from really progressing. It stops us from growing, because we derive comfort in what worked for us before. Trying something new is stretching beyond our comfort zone. And that takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of believing in yourself to be able to let go and really see what can I do and believe in yourself. The second one is psychological challenges. And I think you'll have mentioned that. This is where the fear, the anxiety, all of that comes about. And this is again, many times we don't even, when we experience anxiety, stress, loneliness, self-doubt, isolation, all of this can happen in transitions, especially when we don't believe in ourselves and when we don't take support. So I'll give you an example of this. I was an investment banker. Self-confidence was great, not over-arrogant or underconfident, but it was the right level of self-confidence that I had as an investment banker. When I quit banking to do what I do now, very conscious choice, did I have psychological challenges? You bet. Because I had expectations of myself that I'll get the ball up and running in 6 months. I would have 25 clients. I'll be absolutely cruising through. That is the expectations I had of myself. Because of which the anxiety, the stress, everything was very high. And that affected my self-confidence to a very great degree. And only I know that, possibly very few people saw through that. And because of which I was not who I wanted to be. In helping clients, I need to be self-confident. I have to believe in myself because that's what I'm coaching clients for. If I'm coming from a space of fear, space of self-doubt, and space of, oh my God, I really don't know what I'm doing, then I'm not going to be a convincing communicator to my audience, who are my clients. The third one, interpersonal skills. And interpersonal skills is something which, again, we all, some of us are introverts, some of us are extroverts. And no matter what role we are in, again, I would also take as a mother. I'm not a mother, but when we become mothers, and I've coached women here who have, especially some lawyers who go on maternity leave, and the legal profession, and many professions are demanding, legal is one of them, extremely demanding. They have to, first of all, they get like barely any maternity leave. And then they have to come back. Obviously, if they don't come back, there are implications in terms of their own growth, their own promotion, etc., etc. So if you have all those aspirations and then you come back, there was one of the ladies who shared that, Lalita, it's very difficult for me to leave at 5 o'clock, though I go home and I still work, but I have to go for 5 o'clock because I have to do X number of things to be able to attend to the baby and look after my baby. But the minute I get up from my desk and leave the office, I hear comments like, oh, is it half day? Is it quarter day? And I don't like dealing with those things. So how do we use our interpersonal skills with ourselves to reframe what we're hearing and yet be engaged with the other party in a way that really makes us grow? That people don't see it as defensive behavior. People don't see it as, oh, you're walking out and on top of that you're being rude. We don't want to give that perception to people. So interpersonal skills is not only about with others, but it's also how we manage our own emotions and how we manage our brain when we are in an environment which is very demanding. The next one is behavioral challenges. And this is again one of the most difficult ones because, for many of us as leaders, human beings, to be successful in the new role, new patterns of behavior need to be developed. Point in case, myself. My behaviors as an investment banker on the trading floor were very different, and I had to flex. I had to shift in so many ways to be able to coach clients. I had to be more grounded. I had to be more calm. I had to slow down because when I have a Chinese audience, I have to really slow down the way I speak. I'm speaking my normal pace today because I'm with Indian women, right? If it was the Chinese audience, women or men, doesn't matter. My pace of speaking would really slow down. And those weren't easy because that's the way I'm used to for X number of years, a long, long time. And those are the behavioral changes. And a lot of challenges come about in making these behavioral changes because, again, we are creatures of habit. Next one is relational challenges. Whom do I collaborate with? Whose support do I take? Who is going to judge me? How am I going to feel psychologically safe when I ask for support? I've not been brought up, I'm not a person who asks for support. And again, very common with women. Many of us, and I'm probably generalizing here, but a common challenge that exists with women is we refrain from asking for support and help because we think we see ourselves as weak when we ask for help. And it may be because of upbringing, cultural impact, all of that. And the final one is role perspective changes. This is basically very much in the work life as well as in the personal life. Understand what the new role within the context of the situation of the organization involves. What is a culture from a systemic perspective? So when I moved from one bank to another bank and changed roles, it was about, did I know the product? Yes. Did I know the more or less the clients? Yes, because most of the banks had the same clients. Did I know the product? Extremely well. Did I know the system and the way, who to rely on? Who has the power? Who has the influence? What works here? What doesn't work here? Because that is substantially different from firm to firm. And the culture between European and US and Indian and Chinese and all of that also adds to the challenge. Coming back to, and this is where I'll bring the brain bit a bit, not too much, but a little bit, because I think that will help us give a language to managing the challenges associated with transitions, especially the psychological and behavioral change challenges. So the endings is typically loss. The emotions that most of us experiences is a loss, even if it's a conscious choice, because we have lost our identity. We were comfortable with that identity. There's anger if it is a forced transition. Anger could also arise from, I was very angry because it was a conscious one, and yet I had high expectations of myself. And when I couldn't meet those expectations, I was extremely angry at myself. And therefore, the way people saw me was also the angry self. Very defensive, very irritable. So all of the emotions got affected as well. And therefore, the way I interacted with people also got affected. Denial. And this happens when people pass away. You still believe, like when my dad and my mom passed away, I know personally that I didn't want to believe that they are no more. So there's a lot of denial. There's confusion, there's frustration. In the neutral zone, it can vary from excitement. I like this about the new role. I didn't have this in the old role. Now I like it in this new role. There's parts of this role that all that is excitement. There's also anxiety. Will I be able to meet the expectations of, what this particular role demands? There's resistance. There's also innovation and creativity. And I think one of you gave that example. And in the new beginnings, there's relief. There's a lot of uncertainty still. There's a bit of confusion, yet to a very less degree compared to the ending. There's also exploration takes over. And also that, hey, I need to succeed and I want to prove that I can do it. The commitment comes in, which makes it much more easier to when the new beginning happens because you internalize it completely. So I would request each of you to think. Many of you have said you are undergoing transitions or you have undergone transition. Think of your own situation in transition that you're going through or have undergone. And as you're thinking about the situation, what do you sense? What do you feel? And what are you feeling in your body? Just no judgment, no criticism. Just, I'll keep quiet for about a minute. What are you experiencing? And I would really like you to share on the chat. Any other feelings, or what is your body telling you? As you're thinking about it, are you shrugging your shoulders? Are you feeling a tightness in your stomach possibly? Are you sort of sitting on the edge of wherever you're sitting? Anxiety, yeah. Tension in the neck. Now, the reason a lot of these, especially at the ending stage, unfairness, brilliant point. And that's where the anger comes from. And when we have a lot of these, especially in the endings, little bit in the new beginnings, but in the ending and in the middle neutral zone, what is happening why are we experiencing this? So every neuroscientist will tell you, thank you, Aarti. Every neuroscientist will tell you, and there's been phenomenal amount of research done on this, that our brain is a certainty machine. Our brain likes certainty. Now, some of you may be thinking, hang on, but we've all dealt with uncertainties. Absolutely. When there is uncertainty, the brain behaves differently. When we have to deal with the unknown, the brain behaves differently. So how does typically our brain behave? There's a way to manage it. And we all have learned to manage it. I mean, especially in the past 2.5 years, the uncertainty level has just gone up, and we have all learned and coping mechanisms, right? We've also overcompensated many times, which is why a lot of us, in the world, several people are burnt out, overwhelmed, and anxious, mental health well-being has been affected because they have all overcompensated. So think about the situation, and God forbid this never happens to any of us, but this is just as an example, right? Let's say you are going home or going to the office or whatever, you're going somewhere. And on your way to that place, from destination A to destination B, somebody points a gun at you or takes out the knife and tries to attack you. What might be some of your reactions? There is no right or wrong answer here. There is no textbook answer. Yeah. Freeze, yeah. I'll wait for a couple of more if any of you are sharing, and then I will. Yeah, so there could be panic, and in the panic, our body freezes. We've all experienced moments like that where the brain, we can't even open our mouth, right? So people who are scared of public speaking, they're prepared, they've done rehearsals like 15 times, and yet when they have to make that sales presentation, they stand there and they freeze and they absolutely don't know what to do. That is not that's a fear created by the brain. I'm talking about a physical danger here, right? So in physical dangers, what happens is a hormone called cortisol is produced. And that's a great hormone. It's a stress hormone. In physical dangers, therefore, the brain is trying to protect us. So there is freeze. You all have mentioned that. Fight. How can I protect myself and fight this person? We may have some reactions like that too. Flight. How can I escape? Now, there is a trained, managed way of doing it, which is the fourth one, which is negotiate with the person who is pointing a gun or a knife at you. And I kid you not, I have gone to a training, and I've trained by one of the IMD professors who is a hostage negotiator. And he has actually dealt with hostage situations. And now, not now, but for the past 15 or 20, he's in his 80s. Past 15 or 20 years, he basically coaches people and he trains people as to how do you negotiate with hostage? And also, how do you negotiate when psychologically you don't feel safe, and somebody becomes defensive because they're not psychologically safe. So this is how the brain behaves when there is a physical danger. Unfortunately, the brain doesn't distinguish between physical danger and perceived danger. Examples of perceived danger are uncertainty, unknown, pandemic, I may lose my job, I have no idea what's happening, the office is telling me to work from home, but I don't have any computer, and all of those, which is basically threatening your identity, your status, your way of being. Unfairness, again, brain doesn't behave well, brain hates that you're going through an unfair process. So perceived danger and physical danger are equated by the brain. And therefore, the brain typically in uncertain, unknown situations, in fear situations, goes into the same mode and the same cortisol is produced. And if you remain for a long period, which is why a lot of transitions fail, because people are not trained, people are not supported, people are not given, when they take on new roles or they are new to an organization, that support is not provided. And even if they're excellent, technically very good, they miserably fail. Because we have allowed the body to produce cortisol continuously, and that corrodes our system. We get into a fight, flight, freeze mode, and we don't see this. Typically, when we get into that mode, our executive center, which is here, the prefrontal cortex, as it's called, does all the hardcore tasks. Thinking, as you're doing now, listening, as you're doing now, processing, recalling from memory, or explaining, making a presentation, pitching to your client, all of that, this part of the brain is involved. All the default activities, this one, Pia said, I had to think, because this is this part of the brain. The non-habitual way, this part of the brain is involved. I do it pretty automatically because I've done it so many times. But 15 years back, when somebody asked me to do this, for about 5 minutes, I was struggling. I was like, what are you trying to do? Signing, maybe some of us are right-handers here, some of us are left-handers here. If you sign with the right hand, usually, if you ask to sign with the left hand, and believe me, I've done it when I fractured my right hand. I had to train myself to do it with the left hand. Was it hard? Yes. Was the brain comfortable? No. So the fight, flight, freeze happens, anxiety increases, stress increases, and we are therefore not able, though we are technically very good, we know how to do it, we deny ourselves from doing it because our brain has got into this agitated, non-functioning mode. So whenever we are in a new situation, how do we deal with transition? Transitions being many times in a new situation. The way we deal with it is, and these are based on, as I said, my own experiences, having coached leaders. First thing is really determining appropriately and selectively the parts of the new role, be it in work or in life, that you're finding especially tough. Distinguish between what is real fear, real anxiety, and imaginary fear or imaginary anxiety. Public speaking, an example that I took before. I've coached many individuals with public speaking fears. 90% of the fears are imaginary. Oh, when I go there, I will collapse. My brain will stop functioning. I will forget everything. And when you go on thinking of that, that's what happens, because you've already put the brain in a hijack situation of fight, flight, or freeze. So this part of acknowledging what is real, what is imaginary, what is it tough, why is it tough, really helps. Who shall I be and who do I want to be? This is again important because, you know, for me, moving from investment banking to what I do now, the biggest shift in terms of who shall I be was I have never liked titles, etc. But I realized that I was still using I'm an ex-investment banker to gain credibility. I also had to let go, and I'm sharing something very vulnerable here, right? Me and my husband earn. But there was a time when I was not earning as much as my husband. And that was a big, big, big hurt to my ego. That's when the question, who do I want to be? Who shall I be? And therefore, what are the real things that I really need to get over and internalize that this is what this transition means? I had not done enough work on that when I made the transition. Reframing our inner narratives. We can be our worst enemy. Oh, I'm going to fail at this. I suck at it. I am no good at this. The fact is, we can't be good at everything. And as Aarti pointed out, I'm a good designer. That's what she said. I am not that good in X, Y, and Z. How can you then compensate? Yes, as a startup, myself included, right? I didn't want to really invest money in things which I thought I could do on my own. So the current website is done by somebody else, but my first website was done by myself. Am I a tech person? No. But I spent huge amounts of time on Google, testing this, that, spent half a day every day for several months before I was comfortable putting my website on and doing it. But what I had to do in that whole process is, I started off with inner narratives. No way, I'm zero in tech. Then I had to look at what are my strengths? What did I do in my banking world, which was out of my comfort zone? Can I use that same narrative to help myself to learn something new? And I have always learned something new and challenging and gotten over the challenge. And that's the strength I use to reframe my inner narratives. Asking support. I must admit, I've been quite bad at this. Past 3 years, I've gotten better. Amplifying your strengths. Really, when you finish this conversation, finish this workshop or webinar or whatever you want to call it, really go home, go back to your desk or wherever you are, sit with yourself and really ask, what are my 3 strengths that I really appreciate about myself? How can I amplify that in whatever challenge I'm facing with respect to transition? And really spend 10 or 15 minutes really exploring your strengths. We think we know our strengths, but when you write it down, you get a very different revelation. And finally, why? Why am I doing what I'm doing? There were a lot of things I had to do which I hated doing, but my biggest motivator was my why. The reason I'm doing what I'm doing now is because I like to inspire people. I want to empower women. I want to enrich people's life. I want people to live up to their potential and therefore make this world a better place. And for me, on a scale of 1 to 10, that's a 9.5, very high. And that's the biggest reason I still stay motivated despite all the challenges that I've undergone in terms of sustaining my business. Questions? I know we are 3 minutes over, but since we started late, I'll give it another 5-7 minutes. As you're thinking about our questions, I would really also like you to take a picture of this. And in terms of what was shared, I would really like to ask yourself, what would you like to do more of? What would you like to do less of? And where would you like to stretch out of your comfort zone and try something that you may not have tried before? Hopefully, each one of you have either noted down or clicked. And in case you want my details, it's here. And I'll stop sharing now. Questions?
Could you share me that previous screen where
the question screen?
Yeah. Yes.
Sure. Hang on a second.
Thank you.
You're most welcome.
This is quite a big change. In the first few sessions, Seema would never talk, right? Now she's affirmatively kind of with a lot of assertiveness asking for what she wants. I see that change.
That is so nice.
Yeah, she would never talk. She was hesitating, but now I really love the change in her and the smile and, the nice way in which she's asking firmly and politely. Nice.
Keep that up, Seema. That's really nice to hear. That's one of your strengths.
Yes. I've come back to my old self, Chitra. And thanks to you for the help that you have done for that.
As a coach, I think Lalita will tell us that the most work one has to do is on oneself, our own inner self, and our own demons and our own inner critic, which keeps challenging, criticizing, and making us feel inferior. And that's more so with women. And I'm not a coach, but definitely I am a woman with a lot of experience. I've gone through the same fears, same challenges. I was telling Lalita that the first webinar, I didn't even know what I was talking.
Chitra, that was not the screen
everything.
I wanted. I wanted the previous one to that.
The questions.
Yes.
Okay. Hang on. Sorry. My bad.
Sorry.
Did I take the
No,
picture?
no, not at all. Hang on.
The one previous to that. The one previous. Yes. Thank you, Lalita.
You're most welcome, Seema. No problem at all.
Great. Would you like to take questions now, or would you like to share
Yes.
in the end? So anybody has any questions, we have 10 minutes because I usually go on till 7:15. So we have 10 minutes. Any questions? You have a transition specialist. Don't let her go without understanding how to deal with transitions.
Lalita, I have a question here.
Yes.
You have given us those questions which we need to work upon. So you mean to say this will be helpful if we do it prior to the change? Like sometimes the change might be anticipated in future, or when we are undergoing the change, or okay, after the change also we can do, but which will be the best period that so that we can cope up with that transition in a much better way?
I would say if it's an anticipated transition or even unanticipated transition, knowing what your strengths are, knowing how you can amplify it, knowing what, when I say amplify, use more of that, right? Knowing where you've been successful, writing those down, looking back to look forward. What are some of the events that you remember from as a child till now? You may remember only 3, that's fine. Why do I remember them? What have I learned from them? This is a continuous reflection process. And you can do it every month or twice a month. And when you're in that confusion mode, or when you are before or during or after, you can use this as ammunition to encourage yourself and to get over your inner fears, to believe in yourself, and to provide evidence to yourself that, hey, you know what? This is all not fake. I have done it.
Nice, Lalita. Thank you.
You're welcome. How do I transform the pain of a personal change to a professional transition? The links can be very many. And one of the links I would say is, I'll give you my own example and hopefully that will help. And again, this is what gets discussed here remains confidential. So I'm a diabetic since the age of 8. And I'm a type 1, which means I have to, I cannot eat any sugar, and I have to, basically the type 1 diabetes, the insulin is not produced by the pancreas, 0, nada. So I have to give it externally, which means I take injections 3 times a day. Now I wanted to become a doctor. And my parents and my doctor at that stage, so I got all the necessary marks in, PCB or whatever they used to call it those days. I don't know what they call it these days. It was very good. I had got the required marks to be able to apply from academic point of view. I qualified. But basically what my parents, as well as my, especially my dad and my doctor said was, there is a high chance that you may be rejected on medical grounds. You can still try, and we don't want you to, it's entirely your choice, but we don't want you to start your journey where you're already facing rejection and then, fighting it out and doing all of that. It's not going to be a very supportive, you're not being supportive to yourself. Yes, Chitra. So, you know, and so I decided not to become a doctor. And I've always had that regret in life. Has that regret become less? Yes, it has. And I'll tell you why. That's one of the biggest reasons why I made the switch. One of the biggest reasons. Because, you know, we put ourselves through so much anxiety. We get treated badly. The environments, the systems that we are in makes us sometimes not believe in ourselves, not really play to our strengths. We just go because we need a job many times, or we just do things to keep people happy in our family and all of that. So there are various permutations, combinations to this. And when we are anxious, when we are stressed out, when we are overwhelmed, when we don't believe in ourselves, there is a stress to the system, physically and mentally. And that's how many times it creates a lot of ruckus in our body, and we keep going to doctors. And in being able to give that freedom to believe in oneself, to change people's reframing and to change people's thoughts, I thought will therefore enable, you know, the reduction of people going to doctors. And that's how I've reduced that regret. So a personal change very early on in life, Pia, which helped me to make my professional transition. That's another very big wow, which keeps supporting me.
Everybody's silent. Your example was truly inspiring, and it's understandable why you've become a coach, because I think you want to reach out, impact lives, help people. As a doctor, you would have done the same thing, you know, be in service of people to help them improve their mental and physical health. And here you're working on their confidence, mental health, their anxiety, and in a way, coaching them to lead, in a way, no, actually, coaching them to
Better
lead
lives.
better lives, lead
Yes.
better lives. So the intent is the same. The path you've chosen is different. That's all.
Yes, yes. And that's what sometimes we need to find in transitions. What is it in me that will enable me to support myself in the transition that I'm making? It can be professional to personal or personal to profession. And I'm glad you asked that question, because that also relates to the why.
Yeah, you're right.
And unintentionally, you know, many, I sometimes have conversations with people, I don't believe in the why. And when you get into, you know, when you start having a conversation with them, you realize we're all motivated by our why. We may not be thinking of it. I think about it very consciously. That's what has led me to, you know, get over fears of public speaking and all of that. But for me, the why has been the biggest motivator to get through my fears, challenges, not believing in myself, all of that. It's just been my why.
Yeah.
And really looking and exploring that for each of us, I think will be the biggest way you can really shine and empower yourself.
Very nice. Well said.
Any other questions? And also it's also about identity shifts, because we all have an ideal identity of ourselves. You know, if you had met me 20, 30 years back, I wanted to become a CEO. I wanted to run a big organization. And, you know, somebody a couple of years back told me, but you are a CEO. I said, yeah, of a much smaller organization. And I said, it doesn't really mean much now, because that's not what gives me the fulfillment. We also need to ask ourselves, are my actions and behaviors very much dictated by that ideal identity I still have of myself? Because of whatever, with the way we've been brought up, the peer pressure, you've really got to look into your own values and who are you? It's a tough question to answer. It's a very tough question to answer. Who are you? And who do you want to be? And never be ashamed of who you are. Because we are our worst enemies when we judge and criticize ourselves. We do judge others, we do criticize others. And it all starts with how are you treating yourself? So instead of saying I suck at it or something similar, you may not be using a strong word like suck. That's coming from the banking world. I'm a no good at it. I'm really bad at it. How about reframing that to, I don't know this thing quite well as yet. I'm willing to learn, and see how you then approach things. Instead of using the word problem, reframe it to challenge. Because challenge, it's actually been proved by various studies that the brain moves forward, the brain wants to work, the brain wants to explore. Problem, we get stuck. Oh, how am I going to solve it? Oh my, I'm getting stuck. I don't know how to solve this problem. Asking questions. Never fear of asking questions. Any other questions? And shall we conclude here?
I think
If each of you can share one learning that you're going to apply, I'll be delighted to hear that. Sorry, Chitra, I cut you off.
No problem. Anybody would like to share one learning? Looks like everybody is completely kind of dumbstruck.
Lalita?
Sorry?
Is it learning from this session?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
learning from
Yes. From this session, yes.
Don't be shameful of who you are.